The vast, sprawling hordes of the undead have emerged in the lands. The elves are here to counteract them. This house is the reason for their meeting in this particular area. The thing is that the man who lived here was a necromancer, and the magic that flowed from his corpse as he died in this very house, it started rotting, got into those sewage pipes. So of course the undead want to get there and invigorate themselves on it, and the elves would quite like to stop them doing that. So that's a fancy way of saying this is the dominate scenario. So let's start off with the elves this time. What have you got over there? Let's start on the left.
So hiding behind the small forest is a Draken Lord on a griffin. Next we have a unit of Stormwind Cavalry. They're going to be hopefully straight onto the house, or possibly not. Next to them is a mage with a fireball and heal spell. Then we have a regiment of chariots, and over on the left flank, coming down from the hill, we have a forest shambler horde being backed up by a tree herder, and hiding in the corner another Stormwind Cavalry unit to try and get down the flank.
And over to the undead, starting on this side, we have Revenant Cavalry Regiment, and they have the Blessing of the Gods, so they're elite. We have a Zombie Troll Horde. We have a Necromancer who has an Inspiring Talisman to give a little more inspiration to these undead masses. We have a Zombie Horde. We have a Skeleton Horde. We have a Skeleton Spearman Regiment, and then the prize possession of the undead. They have a Zombie Legion, and the Zombie Legion has the Brew of Strength to give them crushing strength. So they're going to be quite tasty if they get into the fight. So, huge amount of undead. Relatively small amount of elves. Let's see who can win this one. Elves got the first go, and they've advanced, pretty much accepting they're going to be surrounded, I think, with the way they position themselves. And the chariots fired a couple of arrow shots into the Zombie Legion, did 1 point of damage. So, over to the undead. Undead turn 1. Everything crept up pretty slowly, since they are undead after all. And with a little bit of surging, these skeletons moved a bit further than they should have done. And same goes for that zombie horde, with the necromancer surging them on. These woods haven't disappeared. These are just marking where the woods actually are, so I can put them back because the cavalry are standing in the woods at the moment. So, no attacks at all from the undead. Let's see if the elves are going to try and get any early charges in turn 2, shall we? Elf turn 2, and it's all going on now. Let's start over here where there was minimal action. A lot of repositioning, a lot of underwhelming surging, and a fireball from the wizard into these skeleton spearmen that did 2 points damage. Not enough to affect them at all. The chariots went all in on this skeleton horde, along with the lord on the griffin. They did 12 points of damage, but couldn't roll high enough to get rid of them. And the same applies for this cavalry unit into the zombie horde. 11 points of damage there, but couldn't remove them from play. So it's time for the undead to launch a counter-offensive, I think. Undead turn 2, and it was quite eventful. Over here, the Revenant Cavalry moved out of the woods, and then with the help of some surge, they're making their way around the back of the battlefield. Over here, the zombie horde that survived and the zombie troll horde combo charged the cavalry that was there. They did a huge amount of damage. The zombie trolls in the flank did just an insane amount, leaving them needing double ones to not die, and couldn't achieve it, so they're off. The Vampire Lord charged into this Lord on the Griffin, did 4 points of damage to him because he is a combat beast apparently, but couldn't hinder his morale in any way. Over here, the Skeleton Horde and the Zombie Legion charged into this chariot. The Zombie Legion was in the flank, so they had 80 attacks. And as you can see, the chariots did not make it out of that in one piece. I'd be surprised if they made it out in a number of pieces that you could count on your fingers, to be honest. Over here, this little unit of skeleton spearmen charged into those forest shamblers only because they needed to clear a space for the zombie legion to get past into the flank. And they've now turned round to face the oncoming threats. So unless the elves can do some serious damage in the next turn, I would not fancy their chances at all. Elf turn 3, and there has been a mass retreat. So over here, the cavalry realised that they couldn't fit through this gap and make full contact with the zombie legion, so they've turned round and they're going off round that way, along with Mr. Tree. The wizard launched a fireball into this skeleton horde, did a fair bit of damage, but just failed to remove them because of the inspiring presence of the vampire right there. The forest shamblers charged into the skeleton spearmen, did some damage on them, I think they did 6, but could not remove them, which is possibly fortunate because that would have opened up a space for the other undead units to get past. So Mr. Lord on the griffin there flew out of this little hornet's nest here into the relative safety of his own. I'm not even sure if it's a safe zone anymore because the undead are closing in on it, but it's much safer than right here anyway. So let's see if the undead can strike a decisive blow in their turn 3. Undead turn 3, and most of this turn was just spent figuring out what could actually manoeuvre where, because these big unwieldy blocks, it's all very well having them taking up space on the table, but when you actually need to start manoeuvring them, it's quite difficult. So they've had to do a lot of pivoting and very small amounts of movement to try and negotiate their way around this area. The vampire's not constrained by that kind of nonsense though, so he's moved up a bit. And up here these units have come forward. There wasn't a whole lot of surging going on because I didn't want to get within charge range of Mr. Tree over there. So then in the combat, the spearmen put a couple more points of damage onto the shamblers, but couldn't remove them. So that combat's going to rumble on for at least a little while. And it's going to be over to the elves again. Okay, the elves have struck back and it's about time. So the forest shamblers finished off the skeleton spearman regiment that was sitting there. So it looks like they're going to have a showdown with this huge zombie legion in a minute. And also, the skeleton horde that was here took a fireball to the face from the mage. Fireball. And they've exploded. Bones flying everywhere. Flaming bones at that. In this combat over here, because the tree and the lord double charged into the zombie trolls, 6 damage, but not enough to remove them. Undead turn 4. So, the vampire decided he'd had enough of the mage that was there, charged in, cut his head off. This zombie legion, it's very unwieldy, so it just turned round, moved up a little bit. Couldn't then surge into this unit because the vampire was too busy cutting off heads to bother with any of that magical nonsense, and the Necromancer's all the way over here, so he couldn't help out. The zombie troll horde charged into the lord on the griffin, did enough damage so that he has gone. He is toast. The revenant cavalry charged into the flank of the tree herder, put quite a bit of damage on him but couldn't remove him, so he's still in the fight. And this zombie horde did not move at all. So, they're looking very thin on the ground, the elves. If they can get a really decisive turn now, maybe they're in with a chance, but if this one doesn't go well, elf turn 5. So the cavalry on the hill just moved down a little bit because they're terrified of this vampire, so they wanted to stay out of his charge range. And the forest shamblers went into the zombie legion, did a bit of damage, but you're dealing with a legion here, so that's not going to cut it just yet. They'll have to chip away at them a bit more before they're going to do anything significant to them. Over here, Mr. Tree did manage to kill off all the zombie trolls, which is quite impressive. Not to be sniffed at all, and he's turned himself, offering up his flank to the zombies rather than the knights. It was a difficult choice, but that's what he's done. That's all the elves have left, those units. So we'll see if the undead can finish off what's left. Undead turn 5. It's a pretty quick one. The zombie legion went into the shamblers, did quite a bit of damage, finished them off. They're toast. Over here, the zombie horde, the revenant cavalry, charged into Mr. Tree Pants. They did quite a lot of damage on him actually. Look how much he's taken there. He's taken 13 overall, but could not quite roll enough to see him off. So he's still hanging in there, just about. So he's going to get another turn of attacking. Maybe he can take someone down with him. He's going out swinging. Elf turn 6, and the Revenant Cavalry have paid the price for not finishing off the Tree Man, because that meant that their flank was left exposed to the cavalry that were just lurking around there. They came steaming in, combined with the Mr. Tree Herder. With their combined might, they were able to completely crush the cavalry, left them needing a double 1 to survive, which they did not achieve. So it's looking a little bit more even numbers-wise at the moment, an awful lot of zombies still left, and possibly the final turn now for the Undead. Undead turn 6, and this zombie legion, they were too far away to really have an impact, but I thought maybe I could get some double surge action on them. So the vampire gave them a little surge, then the necromancer gave them a little surge, but they couldn't quite make it to the action. Still quite a few inches to go. The zombie horde, though, they fared a little bit better. They took out Mr. Tree Herder, finished him off once and for all with a couple more points of damage on him. He's gone. So just that cavalry left, and that was turn 6, so we need to find out if we're going to get a turn 7. So on 4+, there will be a turn 7. And there is. So we'll see how that turns out. Elf turn 7. The cavalry charged in, finished off the zombie horde, and then just turned round to face the legion. So, see what the undead do in response to that. Undead turn 7. So, all they did, the zombie legion just turned round to face the middle of the table, and then they were repeatedly surged to get them as close as possible, just to make sure the entire unit fell within 12 inches of the centre of the table. So all these units ended up within range of the Necromancer's corpse in the pipe system, and the evil magics therein. So the Undead ended up with about 300 more points, which was enough for a victory. Pretty close in the end though. It was looking very one-sided for the Undead early on, but then the Elves came back and killed off a few units. So it ended up not particularly one-sided in terms of numbers. That unit there, not really scratched at all. Zombie Legion, a little bit, but a Legion isn't going to notice that. Vampire Necromancer, not touched. So, another very bloody battle, and let's get the handshake in there.